Ooh.
of building Maverix Pickleball despite the fear associated to it. And that
Ooh.
person was you, by the way.
Like fear stops us from doing a lot of stuff. It's the fear of failure. You look into something, whether it's Mavericks, and all you see is the finish line and go, man, how do I get there, right? Literally what changed my mind was not having the fear of losing money. It becomes addicted to just talk about it. And the one thing that Alex Hormozy and I think it was like Gary Vee and some of these guys were saying was like, dude, don't tell friends, don't tell family, just start doing shit because, or talk about what about this, what about that. And then all of a sudden you have all these negative thoughts and you don't go. Is the only thing that motivates me is my why. And I think that if you look at every entrepreneur, the successful ones all have a strong why. And it hits really hard. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't want to release it to the public. A group of people almost to be like, super passionate about this brand. And the ultimate goal is that like every year, what I really want to do is I want to have a Mavericks party where it's like a 2-day event somewhere every single year. It's invite only for ambassadors and players. I take this concept and I go to like really exclusive like courts, like not where public can play. I'm texting with them all the time. When I go over there, they're treating me like family, man. But they, when I went over there last time, they invited me back. They said, come back for as long as you want. And they go, dude, every day we will try a new prototype. Like, you guys like literally are going to put your business on hold. I don't know if it's going to be outlawed per se.
Okay.
Because
you want to know my take on it?
Yeah.
Before you get into it?
And I look back at it now and I go, dude, the best decision I ever made was to buy that property. Right. And the same thing through life where I've been through enough things where you feel like you're at the brink of failure, but now I realize that the brink of failure means that, you're almost to a new chapter. There are those days that you wake up and you don't want to do shit. And I have many of those days, but I always force myself. I'm like, dude, just give it 20%. Just give it 20%. That's all you got to do today. Look at that story, right? Where's Nike today? They're probably the most successful sports company, right? They never should have been. And it's my belief that anything you do can turn into a Nike. My biggest fear.
I don't know if this one's going to be tougher for you, but I'm going to give it to you in case I can't get to the last one. You want her to know for why you are doing all of this.
Oh, shit. Oh, man. That's gonna be a tough one.
So a question that I like to start with is really I like to ask every guest, like, who are they? So I'm going to ask you, who is Matt Miller today?
Ooh, well, Matt Miller today is a lot different than I was yesterday. It was a hell of a lot different than I was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But today, man, I'm still a firefighter, paramedic, still love doing that. I'm a father, and then obviously have Mavericks doing that. I'm just I'm on a quest right now to build Mavericks, and I think as we've kind of talked about, there's a lot of story with that in my daughter's name, and so I'm really passionate about that. But yeah, man, just who I am today is just continually trying to improve and make myself better to be a better father, be a better firefighter, and ultimately learn as much as I can to help this business succeed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you brought up the fact that beyond just being a firefighter and a dad, you're building Maverix Pickleball, which is how we met initially.
Yeah.
I think to kind of brief on where our relationship started is I was using your initial paddle, which has a super unique shape, and I reached out to you guys and I was like, hey, I'm gonna start playing qualifiers. Is there any chance you have like a couple that I need for paddle testing? Because when on the start of the year, and everybody that's doing qualifiers now knows this, is they were just saying, you know what, everybody has to get paddles tested.
Right.
So when you were going in, you were like, I need 2, 3, 4. Like, I need a bunch.
Right.
And they've kind of dwindled down that process since then. But our relationship kind of started there, and then it kind of flourished from having a few phone calls, and we shared some mindset stuff, and bounced back and forth on some engineering ideas, and kind of started into where our relationship is today. But we'll definitely get into that.
So absolutely.
I'm gonna lead you into something here. So,
Yeah.
a very intelligent individual once said, "We all have these different ideas, but you never want to act on it because of fear."
Yeah.
What led you to really act on the idea of building Mavericks Pickleball despite the fear associated to it? And that
Ooh.
person was you, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I I'll tell you this: a
Yeah.
guy named Alex Hormozy, I draw so much inspiration from, and single-handedly has changed my mindset. And I've listened to a lot of motivational people, but Alex Hormozy, I mean, and I'm sure you know who he is, man. He's so articulate, and he literally, I mean, I think I owe part of Mavericks to him. It's been amazing. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, growing up, my family's always kind of been in business, and that's just the way that my mind was always wired, kind of from my dad. I've always just had different ideas. Like I always like to just think outside the box, but never really acted on anything. And we can kind of get into that stuff later. But I think that growing up, for the most part, we all become very like fear stops us from doing a lot of stuff. It's the fear of failure. You look into something, whether it's Mavericks, and all you see is the finish line and go, man, how do I get there? Right. And nobody ever teaches you how to just break these things down and just get started. So through the years, like I said, I've just had so many different ideas, and I think my ultimate goal in life was always to, build some sort of financial freedom, or just, I guess, a life for myself, whether it's a business through real estate, whatever it is. Like, I just enjoy taking an idea and kind of turning it into a reality and building upon it.
Mm.
And throughout the years, just always had different ideas. And I was in the fire department working so much overtime, just never really needed to step out and take that step. And finally, with Mavericks, I kind of got just sick and tired of myself, not acting upon ideas. And I finally said, like, dude, literally enough's enough. Like, you're either act on it and just fail, like learn something from it. And that was the point. That's literally what made me change was, um, yeah, I mean, I just finally had that mindset of knowing that I've been through enough stuff in my life that if I get myself into fire, like I'm going to get out somehow. I don't know how, but just get yourself in it and then figure it out. And when all the other entrepreneurs that I've studied, if you look at every single one of them, that's how they all are. Nobody sits down and has this very clear cut plan. You just got to dive into the shit. And, it's not every day's perfect, but you figure it out. And it's like, you don't know what happens today. You don't know what happens tomorrow. You don't know what happens next week. But far in the distance, you have this little vision, and you just you keep that in your mind, just knowing that there's going to be these peaks and valleys. And so, yeah, that's really what made me take the step, was just finally having enough. Going, dude, I'm not going to let another idea go. Like, I'm going to get after it, and if I fail, great. Like, I hope I do, because I'll learn something. And
Yeah.
so that's really, and like I said, this is a lot of Alex Hormozy, like, really resonated with me. So
Is there a specific moment that you remember that you're reflecting on and you're like, because
yeah,
a lot of us really, what Alex Hormozy calls is mental masturbation, right?
yeah,
You're literally going through, you're consuming all this content, trying to get this motivation around, but the inevitability is without action, it doesn't mean shit,
yep,
right? Bluntly. So do
yep.
you know or remember that instance that made you say, you know what? I'm pulling trigger on this. I'm gonna make this happen.
Dude, you're asking good questions.
Yeah,
So this kind of opens. This is going to be a little long-winded, but
that's okay.
and I don't want to get, I always say this. I don't want to get too personal, but this is all part of the story.
Yeah.
Um, I went through a divorce, and through the divorce, the amount of money thrown at attorneys is just ridiculous. The way that I was raised, I think that a lot of us are raised is very conservative with money. We all have this like emotional connection to money, and so it's like a lot of our fear is always based on money. Well, after going through the divorce and seeing how much money that I'd spent on attorneys, I'm sitting here at the end of it going, dude, my life didn't change at all. And, I've gone all this time just worrying about money, worrying about money, worrying about money. Um, that was honestly pivotal for me, because again, getting into Mavericks, I go, you know what? I'm going to throw some money at this thing. If I lose it, whatever, you know, like I've just spent all this money on attorney fees. And so that's literally what changed my mind was not having the fear of losing money. But the other part of it, and again, going back to Alex Hormozian, you talked about the mental masturbation, is
Mm.
that I used to listen to that with him. And I was somebody that used to listen to a lot of the motivational podcasts and all the motivational videos on YouTube. And it's exactly that. It releases dopamine in your brain and makes you feel all good in the moment. But it's literally like that's how addiction works, is it's all about the dopamine, and that's what it is. And so like as I listened to Alex, a lot of that resonated with me. And the other thing that resonated with me that he had said was he talked about like when you're going to step out and do any of these kind of endeavors, that you always go around like you want to go tell your friends, hey, I'm going to start this business, and tell your family, right? Because what it does is it lets you live in this fantasy world and it releases dopamine.
Mm.
That's the drug addiction part. So it becomes addicted into just talk about it. And the one thing that Alex Hormozian, I think it was like Gary Vee and some of these guys were saying was like, dude, don't tell friends, don't tell family, just start doing shit, because it doesn't allow you to get that satisfaction right now. And so that was what really that was the big change for me. Was I like when I got started, there was no friends, no family, and I made that kind of commitment to myself that I wasn't going to tell one person until like I actually started the company, because I realized looking back how many times people stop, and it irritates me now, because there's so many people that have ideas and you never act upon ideas because your friends and family just instill fear or talk about what about this, what about that, and then all of a sudden you have all these negative thoughts and you don't go.
Mm.
So, um, anyways, long-winded answer, but yeah, you're kind of opening up some stuff for me to talk about.
No, listen, it's spot on, and there's a reason that 9 out of 10 businesses fail, right?
Yeah,
And the unfortunate part about it, of why what they talk about too is so true, is the people around you, like your inner circle, and I think that we talked about this before, are such important key pieces to you moving forward, because it's very easy. And anybody that could relate to this, that is pursuing pickleball right now at a professional level, right? There's a lot of memes out there about a lot of people doing it.
yeah,
However, there are so many other people that when you're out there and you're drilling every single day, and you're putting in the work and putting in the time, putting in the effort, that they want to hold you back because it's something that they also want to do and just can't get themselves to do, or are scared of
yep,
the outcome. So, for example, right? My first 3 qualifiers, I got my ass kicked, ass
mhm,
kicked. But most people don't want to go and do that just because they're scared that they have to come home and tell their friends and family that they got their ass kicked,
right, right,
right? So I think you're spot on with that. You got to keep moving the goalposts, and you got to keep pushing and chugging forward, which is, it shows the resilience that you have, right? And that's really why I wanted to dive into that, is I wanted to know where that resilience in you really comes from. And I'll pull that out of you somewhere
yeah, yeah,
along this podcast. But
yeah.
so I want to dive back a little bit. I want people to know, what is Mavericks Pickleball, and how did it start? Because I know
Yeah,
that you're a guy who moves forward with a lot of meaning and a lot of purpose, and I know that it's involved also in your brand.
right. Yeah, absolutely. So the way that Mavericks got started was, again, going back to like I've always just had these projects in my mind, or passion projects. And at the end of 22, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to build something, and everything that I do, like I have to have, and I talk to a lot of people about this, is the only thing that motivates me is my why. And I think that if you look at every entrepreneur, the successful ones all have a strong why, and it normally, and for whatever reason. But if you don't have that strong why, it is really freaking hard to wake up at 4 a.m, stay up till 2. Like, why are you going to do it, right?
Mm.
You have to have something, like your back has to be against the wall. Um, so the way that I got started with Mavericks was I wanted to kind of build something in my daughter's name because it had meaning to me. Um, and I grew up doing sports. We were playing pickleball at the fire station, and I really enjoyed it. So I started kind of looking into paddle design materials and all that stuff. And I grew up with my dad who had all sorts of tools, kind of building stuff all growing up, and so like I always liked taking stuff apart, learning how it was built, and as I kind of got into that with paddles, like I just kind of started grow or the my desire to like learn more just kept growing and growing. And on top of that, I've always had kind of like, I guess, an artistic mind, if you might. Like, I did a lot of video editing back in the day, and I really enjoyed doing that. Like, because I can kind of like really bring my thoughts like onto canvas, if you may. And like, it was an art piece. And so being able to take all that with my graphics background and the idea of creating a brand, like having my daughter's name tied into it with Mavericks and the first paddle named after her, like that just really like, I don't know. It gave me something to just like wake up and drive towards, and I just kind of dove into it, and I knew going in I knew that there was a way that we can get to the point of success. You never know what the steps are going to be, but I've done enough now in my life that, like I said, I got to a point where like I actually believed in myself, and that was the big part. So.
And I know that to kind of drive home the purpose that you operate with, you spoke about your daughter a little bit.
Yeah.
Your daughter's name is Haven, correct?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
some people are going to be like, "Hey, how does that get into
Yeah.
that? The paddle's name is Havik and the brand's name is Mavericks. Like, how is that
Yeah.
even close?" Right?
Yeah.
So give us a quick breakdown,
For
so we know
sure.
the purpose behind the brand.
So the branding part took 6 months or so. It was a long time trying to think of names. And like I said, wanted it to be something tied to my daughter's name. Started out with like well, I thought about Haven, then like
Mm.
Havik, and I'm like, I don't like all that. And then at one point, Miller Paddle Company, because that was my last name, and like strong American, brand. I'm like, well, okay, it could work, but still didn't like it. And I had come home from hanging out with some buddies one night, had a couple drinks, and like I always do, sat down at the table right here, writing names down, just
Yeah.
write them down, write them down, write them down. And again, like this all has to have meaning to me. And the word maverick, like I just liked the meaning of that word. Somebody that's a trailblazer, going to get out and do things differently. And that's something that's always, that I've always sought is just, I want to do stuff differently. I don't want to follow, what everybody else is doing. But the word maverick, like that really still didn't have much meaning to me. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, M from Miller, AVE from Haven. I'm like, that works. And then I put the X at the end to just kind of make it more brandable.
Mm.
And then I'm like, I like that. I'm like, that was it. That stuck. That had meaning to me. And then, but I still wanted, that Havik name. Trying to name a paddle. There was a bunch of different names. And then I finally said, screw it. Again, everybody's going to have their opinion, but I'm like, I don't care if people like it or not. Again, this isn't for other people. This was for me. And this has meaning to me. And if it has meaning to me, then I'll keep moving forward. And so I put my daughter's name. And then, I don't think I mentioned this, but again, everything I do has to have meaning. So the social media, the Instagram launched on May 1st of 2023. So last year, at like 7:40 p.m. or something. That was my daughter's birth time.
I
So
love that. I
yeah,
absolutely love that. Because
yeah.
you
And
know what?
so
That means something to you
yeah,
personally, and nobody else knows, but for you, it's
right,
something that it's meaningful. I love it.
right. Yeah. Yeah, so it's cool because like in my mind, Maverick's birthday is the same day as my daughter's
Mm.
birthday, so it's kind of cool.
Both of them have the same origin. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
So something to kind of build off of this is that the brand has a slogan called "Swing Different."
Yes.
So with that being said, highly related to what a maverick is, a trailblazer, as you call it, right?
Right.
So, is there one specific relationship or person in your life that employed you to want to be different or like want to be a maverick and really move in that trailblazing type of fashion? Because you're going against the grain often.
Right.
Um, reason I asked that question is because if it is Alex Hormozi, great. But I feel like we all have that one person that
Yeah.
really says, you know what, I'm going to go against the grain and really guides you and gives you that inspiration.
Well, Yeah, that's an interesting question. A good question. So yes, Alex Hormozy, I'm sure has a big part to do with that. My dad, I think has, he's taught me a ton and probably attribute a lot of my success to what he's taught me.
Yeah.
But dude, I read this book called the Code of the Extraordinary Mind.
This is so funny. I'll have
Have
to,
you have you read it?
I'll comment after. Do you remember recommending it to me?
Did I? Oh God. Okay, maybe I did. So
We had a phone call and I was like, I'll let you continue, but we had a phone call
yeah.
and I was like, dude, give me the next thing that I need to read. And you're like,
Yeah.
this book. So I'll comment on it after, but yeah.
So I read that book,
Yeah.
and I'm not a great reader. I don't remember a lot of stuff. But there was something in that book that really resonated with me, and I'm gonna butcher the way that he phrases it. But essentially, he says that in life, there's so many of these like what society says is normal, like how we're supposed to do things. Whether you're supposed to go to college, whether you're supposed to wake up and have breakfast in the morning or whatever it is, right? Society tells us, or like our brains are programmed, we're just kind of robots. And he calls them Brules, bullshit rules. And the way that he kind of broke it down was like you have to stop yourself from thinking that way because the reason you're thinking that way is because the person next to you did it. But that doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking about stuff and the way that he broke it down, I go, dude, that is so right. We follow stuff not because it's law, just because the person next to us says, hey, you're supposed to eat lunch at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and so that's really what started making me think differently about a lot of that stuff. But then there's different things throughout my life that's really like, I guess, reinforced that. And one thing in particular is so at the fire department, we during your probationary year, we have something that we would do called company schools. And it's essentially you're giving a presentation on a piece of equipment, and you would do it every shift pretty much. And at my fire department, it was very, very in depth. And I always remembered like some of the senior guys would tell me, hey, you have all this info, keep it real short to 15 minutes and like only give them a little bit and let them ask you questions. And I don't know, I just remember thinking like no, I'm not going to do that. Like I put in all this work and I have about 45 minutes of information. And if they want to stump me after that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I did all this research and I'm going to give it all to them. Right. And my company schools are always known to be really good. And that's what kind of like was reinforcing to me of like, hey, these guys are telling you to do it this way. And I'm like, no, like this is the way that I'm going to do it. And it's worked out. And so, yeah, I don't know. I've just I've learned to operate that way, and it's not that I go against everything that people say, but I take everything with a grain of salt, and I like to think about things at different ways. So yeah,
Is there anything you think from your childhood, like growing up, that had you have like that questionnaire mindset, right? Because that's really when I think of engineering and a
yeah,
lot of engineers, it's the constantly questioning not only if something can be done better, but
yeah,
also if it can be done at all, and really
right,
going against the grain of not using the term of I can't, but really how
right.
can I, right?
Yeah. Dude, the probably the biggest thing that has helped my mindset just critically thinking
Yeah,
is growing up. Again, my dad's a jack of all trade, master of none. He knows how to do just about everything, electrical, plumbing, blah, 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 carpentry, everything. And so
yeah,
that's how I grew up. And I raced motocross growing up, and we raced pretty competitively. But my dad he would never be like my mechanic, like the other kids working on their bikes. And so it was always me. I was rebuilding motors at probably 13 or 14 years old, and I was having to figure it out on my own. I would call Pro Circuit, the
mm,
local shop, hey, what kind of jetting and all that stuff. Anyways, so growing up, like kind of using all of those skills, using all those tools, like it really taught me like how to look at stuff and like understand how things work or like question how it works. Um, and especially when it came to problem solving. And so I really do think that a lot of that mindset or the way I was taught to think about stuff has translated, whether it's into business or anything else. And it's just, I guess, the critical thinking component. So, yeah.
totally. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
And it's more So here's where I'm not gonna bag on any engineers here, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna bag on the schooling a little bit. And the
yeah,
reason being is because they teach you long mathematical formulas, teach you how to get the specific answer of everything, and you are not using that shit unless you are doing research in a lab for a university or some private equity firm, right?
right,
In real life, and especially in manufacturing, have you seen it's like timeline, deadline after deadline, and most of it's trial and error and figuring it out on the fly. Like
yep,
that's the real life part of it. So with that being said, I could totally see how that has shaped you into the person that you are today and what you're doing with Mavericks. And how are you really going against the grain and really just questioning things, right? Problem
right,
solving after problem
right,
solving.
right,
That's awesome. So the reason
yeah,
that I'm saying that's awesome is because my father was a little bit different. My father's patience was a little bit short.
okay,
So he was one of those guys who would employ me to go do it. And as soon as I messed it up, it was like, you know what? Get out of here. Let me do it myself, you know?
yeah,
So your father having that patience is awesome because that's where you learn. And when we talk about failure, it's like
right,
you're going to grow the most from failing over and over and over again and trying to
right,
figure it out.
right,
Right. So it's funny that kind of not pivoting, but on the same
yeah,
topic, it's really funny that you brought up the code of the extraordinary minds because I had it written down as a question.
okay,
I did. And something that I wanted to address with you was Brules, was bullshit rules, because I
yeah,
think this concept is changed my perspective massively too. So when you gave me the book and I got to that section of the book, I was like, this is awesome. Awesome way to go about it. And he just has a great writing tone, right? It's like a little bit comedic, a little bit of a comedic undertone, which makes it
right,
super easy to read.
yeah,
But what I wanted to ask you today is on this journey of building Mavericks Pickleball, and especially with the dynamic in the pickleball industry that's going on, right? There's almost maybe not enough rules, or maybe too much, or rules aren't known. But if it is in pickleball or it's just in business in general, what is one bullshit rule that you've run into today where you're like, I'm not sure if that's correct. Let me double check that. Can you think of one off the top of your mind that happened recently?
yeah. I mean, it's what we're currently doing.
Yeah.
The foam course, right?
Mm.
And so I actually hired a product developer, and we're kind of working through some of that stuff. And one thing that he and I had talked about is like, why do we use a polypropylene core? Why do we use a foam core? Is that because the gods made polypropylene for pickleball paddles? No, it's not. It's because one person did it and it worked, and so everybody else thought that polypropylene was the answer. I personally do not think that foam is the answer. The guy that I'm working with does not think that foam is the answer. And I've told people this: why is everybody else using foam cores? Because it worked for one person. But for me, I'm like, there is something that is out there that is better. And I don't know what it is. Is it putting a piece of plywood in the core? I don't know. But there is something that works better than polypropylene or a combination with polypropylene or whatever it is. And it's the same thing with carbon fiber, the way paddles are shaped. Like, why are paddles shaped the way they are? Because somebody did it and we all
Mm.
followed suit, right? And so that's the challenging part, and that's what I like through all of this business is going, just because you're doing it that way does not mean I'm doing it that way, because that is not necessarily the right way to do it. And change takes time,
Yeah.
but there are always better ways to do things. But you have to think outside the box, and you have to like we are so programmed to just think, whatever it is, what everybody else is doing. Foam course. Oh, got to do a foam core. Oh, maybe I'm going to put some polypropylene in foam core. Why? Yeah, because everybody else is doing it. Um, and I'm not saying that we're going to find the perfect solution, but you and I both know there is something out there better, but you just got to find it.
Yeah, we won't hint too much on some of our prior conversations yet. We'll keep
Yeah,
that to ourselves. We'll keep that to ourselves
exactly.
when we were brainstorming. But
Ah,
either
dude. Yeah.
But either way, like it's so true, and I think that's what's honestly one of the best parts about the pickleball manufacturing industry in general in the space is like it is so new. It's not like aerospace where it's been around for I don't know 100 years now,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of things that I think I said this once on another episode, right? There are a lot of things that they tell you that can't be changed.
Yeah.
You go and look at an engineering drawing and it has 50 revisions. 50. That means 50 times someone looked at that and said, there's probably a better way to do this, or there's a better material, or there's a better way to manufacture it, right? So they'll tell you over and over and over again that it needs to be done this way, but over
Right.
hundreds of years, they've done it 50 times. That's
Yeah.
once every other year, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So that gives you perspective on an industry like aerospace is still making changes at that rate, and we're in a pickleball industry that is so fresh, so new, nobody knows the answer.
Right.
Nobody knows
Dude,
the answer right now.
what one of the most recent things, and just to kind of piggyback onto that,
Yeah.
was we did a 15 millimeter core, right?
Mhm.
Same thing, bullshit rule. Why does everybody do a 16 millimeter core and a 14 millimeter core? Because everybody else does it, and they
Yeah.
think that like that's just what people like. Well, no, it's just what somebody did and it works. Like, so that's why I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm
Yeah.
like we're gonna do a 15 millimeter core. The reason that people haven't done it is because nobody else has done it. So
Do
yeah,
you have a couple paddles around you right now?
I could grab them.
Yeah, go grab for me quick. You know what? I should be a better ambassador with my pickleball bags in my car. I should have it sitting next to me right now with every paddle in it.
Dude, you
If I have to go run out and get it, I will.
no, I've got some here.
Well,
Actually,
yeah,
I have a fulfillment center now, but I still have some product here. So
that's awesome.
all right, so that's
So yeah, really what I wanted to get into is like people, so a lot of people haven't seen the different shape or have been briefed on it, overlooked it. Like it is
yeah,
against the grain, right? It's not the
right.
normal shape that you've seen. So what went into to educate people quickly? Why the weird ass shape?
Yeah. Um, so when I got into this, I did not really know. I mean, quite honestly, didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Um, but the one thing that I knew was that in a saturated market, you have to do something to make yourself stand out. Like, I hate to say it, that everybody that has these same hybrid shapes, it's great, but you show up to the courts and there's a million hybrid paddles, and my mindset was always like, I don't care. Like, the paddle might not work for everybody, but I just want to make something that looks different and plays different. So when researching paddles, one of the important metrics that people talk about is swing weight, and that refers to like how heavy a paddle feels when you swing it, and that's something that's like a hot topic in pickleball.
Yeah.
And and the analogy that I use with swing weight, like, even though this paddle weighs 8 ounces, the swing weight against or in comparison to another 8 ounce paddle could be different. And the way that I think about it is that, if you were to take a hammer, for example, and the head of the hammer's out here, right, and it feels real heavy. If you were to flip the hammer around where the head of the hammer is in your hand, the hammer's still the same weight, but now you're just swinging the handle of the hammer, right? And so the
Hmm.
swing weight's real low. I know I'm probably getting confusing, but the same
No,
concept.
that's a great reference. That's a great reference.
Yeah, and so the same concept goes with pickleball, where as you add material out here, the feeling, the weight of the paddle exponentially gets heavier and heavier and heavier, making it feel heavier. And so when I was looking at it, like, you don't use this top edge of the pickleball paddle, and so I'm like, dude, let's remove weight off the top here. It makes it a little bit more aerodynamic, makes it look different. Um, and then when we actually built it, it was a perfect combination. We had, the elongated paddle that swings like it's a more maneuverable hybrid paddle. And then, so we did that. And it's definitely, it can be polarizing, but my thing also was, Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time. Over time, people will like it. Um, and I didn't care if it catered to everybody. There are going to be people that like it, and the same concept goes with the current paddle shape that we have. Like, if this was the paddle shape that pickleball started with, this is all that we would know. And if I came in with the square top edge, people would be like, what the heck is that?
Spot
Same
on.
thing.
Spot
So
on.
yeah.
And when so obviously I played with the original Havik 16,
Right.
and it was kind of weird how I stumbled upon you guys. it was really one of my buddies who knew I was getting into pickleball was like, "Hey, there's this interesting paddle that came up on my feed. I think you should take a look at it." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And so the reason it interested me heavily at the time was because I was struggling to get a heavy amount of topspin. I was like, and you want to know what else I was doing of why I resonated with you guys so much? I
What's
was
that?
using a 6-0 at the time, and
Okay.
I loaded up the knob with weight to get
Okay.
the weight in the handle, and also the
Right.
bottom of the paddle.
Right.
So I was trying to make it so that the fact of the end, the top of the paddle was super light, so that I can
Yeah.
get it through quickly.
Yep.
So when he showed me you got your guys' paddle at the time, I want to say this was sometime last December before. I can't remember when I reached out to you guys, but
Right.
I had been using it, I think, for like 3-4 months before. So I bought one and I was like, this thing is awesome. I was
Yeah.
like, it felt like a feather, an
Yeah.
absolute feather in my hand. And I was like, it's
Yeah.
8 ounces still. Like, this is insane. So I started using it. And it was a the first one is like heavy control, right?
Yeah.
You playing it
Yeah.
with it today, you're like, you have so much control over the ball.
Right. Right.
So then it really just iterated for me there. I upgraded to the Pro after that when you guys came out with the 15 millimeter. I was using the
Right.
15 millimeter beforehand, and it had a little bit more power, but still the control. And I was like,
Yeah.
what an upgrade this is.
Yeah.
Then, where I was honest with you, and I texted you on the side, I was like, dang, I like the Clash a lot. And
Yeah.
this is where we have to have a deeper conversation about this because
Yeah.
I do have this concept of about where the sweet spot is located more than anything
Okay.
in reference to, so if you're talking about a hammer, right?
Right.
And your hand is here and you're thinking about a lever of
Right.
where the sweet spot is. That
Hmm.
does vary player to player, but it's something about the hybrid shape that makes it super consistent for a mass population. That sweet
For
spot.
sure.
Does
For
that make
sure.
sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
So when I picked up the Clash, which for anybody, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but the Clash is the standard hybrid shape that I know Matt has been like hesitant to
Yeah.
originally release.
Yeah.
Um, I picked it up out of the box and it was like a glove. I texted Matt and I was like, "This paddle is like a glove. I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Oh.
it just fit perfectly. But
Yeah.
the reason I love what you guys did initially is one, not only going against the grain, but two, you actually had method and reason behind what you were doing. You
Right.
weren't just slapping another paddle out there with a brand name on it and hoping that it
Right.
sold. Like
Right.
there was thought and reason behind what you were creating in general.
Sure.
And now, do you have, is it 4 paddles of the new line and the 2 before that, right? So 6
So
total.
yeah, I mean 7 if you
Okay,
consider the
the Pro
Pro
X.
X, but I mean that's not a public paddle, but yes, I mean
I've swung it.
yeah, it hits.
It rocks. It rocks.
So
So
yes,
what's the difference between them? Because I've flirted around with a bunch of them, but if you were getting more into the details of the difference between the paddles and somebody wanted to go check one out, what is the difference between them? Materials, length, shapes, right?
material and core. So the Pro model is a carbon Kevlar blend, um, and it hits harder than our all court model,
Mm,
but it still has a good level of control. And the thing that I've learned too is that power and control are all relative terms. It means something different, completely different to me, because a high level player will think this is a control oriented paddle where you put this in a new player's hand and they're going to go, dude, I need something soft, right?
yeah.
Um, but the big difference, so start with materials. I always rate them like this would be a power rating of like a 7 versus the Pro X would be a power rating of like an 8.5.
Yeah, that one's hot.
This has a lot more fiberglass in it. The sweet spot shrinks, but the power or the pop on this thing is insane compared to the regular pro paddle. And the reason being was the pro level guys, man, they really don't care how big that sweet spot is because they're so consistent. They just
Mm.
want power. They want power and pop. And it's funny because this paddle, the Pro X, has probably become almost more popular between our a lot of our ambassadors than the regular pro paddle. They're loving it.
So the
So
Pro paddle, I will say, the because I was using the Havik for a while.
yeah,
Um, a while, and we have some stuff to tease after this that I texted
For
you
sure.
about, but we'll get from there. But I
Yeah.
I got a lot of swings on it, and it definitely softened up a little bit on me, for
Right.
sure.
I can
So,
see.
I went from initially using it and thinking that it was super poppy, one, in comparison to the initial Havik,
Right.
for sure, and then where I loved it in that period was that it softening up a little bit on me allowed me to get the control back. I didn't see it as, like, it already had a lot of control and I have more control. I had
Right.
the feeling of, like, it was stiff, it was poppy, and I'm talking about the original Havik Pro
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
feeling it was stiff, poppy, and it softened up on me. I'm like, "This is the perfect combo. This is the
Yeah.
perfect combo." But the new Pro X, and I don't know when you guys are releasing it,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you wanna tease that at all, but,
Yeah.
that one hits hard, hard.
It hits really hard. And I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't want to release it to the public.
There's
And the
nothing wrong with
reason
that.
being is, again, doing stuff differently.
Yeah.
We launched this ambassador program, and one of the questions that I'm always trying to answer is, how do I make this ambassador program exciting for the ambassador? How do I make this a win-win for both us and for the ambassador? And I always put myself in the ambassador's shoes. Like, what company do I want to be involved with? And I don't like, you want a company that makes you feel important, where you're going to get an exclusive product, so like cool and exciting stuff. Like, I don't just want a discount code from a company. So in my mind, I'm always like, dude, I wanted to create a paddle which was ambassador specific, like for
Hmm,
the ambassadors, right? But at the same time that we launched the program, I had this guy in stock. We just hadn't launched it.
okay.
So I did a soft launch to the ambassadors and players, and they started loving it. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let this ride for a while. And I've told people, I'm like, you can sell it to the public. I don't care. But the public can't buy straight from us. They have to
Yeah.
buy through the ambassadors. And so that's kind of the allure of it now, is like,
Huh.
I want the ambassadors to feel important.
Mm,
And I think people enjoy like being able to have a product that's not available to the public. And that's one of the perks of the program, is that we will continue to do that. And so I really want to keep this an ambassador only paddle. But again, if you're in the public, you can buy it through an ambassador. The ambassador's got to buy it. And so I liked the allure of that. It's just kind of, it seemed cool. It seemed exclusive.
that's it's an awesome idea, especially
Yeah.
from when I know how important, like, community is, right? To especially
Yeah.
grow your brand, and I know how much you speak on that.
Yeah.
So, that is a tremendous idea to really build a community of like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Say, "You know what? This is exclusive to you. If
Yep.
you wanna go get it through our group of individuals that are passionate about this brand, you're more than welcome." Now, I
Yep.
was gonna ask you this later, but
Yeah.
since you brought it up now, I'll ask you. You've put so much emphasis recently on the ambassador program,
Right.
so much emphasis,
Yeah.
right? I what, the past 6 months, definitely, just within the ambassador team, of, like, really trying to create an elite product for all the ambassadors.
Yeah.
What made you say, "This is a pillar that we need to run with. This needs to be a staple of Mavericks Pickleball"?
So it was always something in my mind that I wanted to create, because the way I think about it is, like, you look at a Google or an Apple company, and the reason that people like working for Google or Apple is because, like, the community that they offer, like all these perks, like it doesn't really feel like you're working. And with Mavericks, I didn't want it to be a corporate company. I wanted this to be like a company that's built by a community of people. Like, we all build it together. I wanted this to be a big family where, I can interact with everybody. And that was always something in my mind, was that I wanted to build this really cool ambassador program. But when I got started, there's a million different avenues that you can go down. And I'm constantly trying to hold myself back on chasing after ideas, because I'm always having to grab the idea that I have the most leverage with, because I don't have a huge team. So I just, it was something that I didn't really go after immediately. About 4 months ago, I was kind of working with somebody who really pushed me into the ambassador idea and kind of got my wheels turning on it. And then, and again, and the other part that I didn't really do the ambassador program initially, was Like, you know what, when I brought you on, it was just me running it, right? And it was very low key. But the reason I kept it at like 10 people was my vision, my ideas of the ambassador program were really big.
Mm,
I didn't have the time or energy by myself to be able to do that because I have so many other things. So
yeah.
I hired Rick Howard, who's running the program. He did all this research, built this cool program, and it was a lot. We have had to think through so many different things. And so we got started with it, and I'm like, dude, let's do this. And the more we got into it, I'm like, dude, I want to really create this cool program. I want to call it the Mavericks Army. I want it to feel like an army. I want like a group of people almost to be like, super passionate about this brand. And the ultimate goal is that like every year, what I really want to do is I want to have a Mavericks party where it's like a 2-day event somewhere every single year. It's invite only for ambassadors and players. We get a hotel, have a Mavericks only tournament, have media teams there and stuff, but have it like, a cool retreat where hopefully we're doing well enough where we can kind of subsidize it to make it affordable for ambassadors to show up. But I'm like, that's what I want with Mavericks. I want Mavericks to really have that feel that, the Mavericks Army feel. So that's what kind of really got me going doing it. And then I also like getting into it. I realized that at the core of this brand, the ambassador program is one of the really, really strong pillars. Like Joola and Selkirk are not going to have a strong ambassador program, which is fine, or they do, but like I want a different feeling. I want this to be a really big pillar where the ambassadors are really like build out this brand. So
What made
that's really what got me going.
what made you, was this a, shower thought in the morning where you're like, this needs to be the pillar? Or was this something that, and I'm talking prior to you kind of already knowing that an ambassador program is important, but really saying it's like one of the major pillars? Because that's a big shift. It's not like, as
Yeah.
growing Mavericks Pickleball, there's a difference between like, hey, this is a branch of what we need to do, to like, hey, this is the forward
Yeah.
facing big pillar that we are going to invest a lot of time and effort into.
Thinking back, it was
Yeah.
always a big pillar in my mind.
Okay.
But when I'm launching a brand, it's always like everything's very capital intensive. So to start, it was really like, hey, how do we get our branding real polished, get some marketing, get some sales moving because I need the capital in order to invest in the ambassador program. Um, but I think that the big shift was again just kind of finally stepping out and doing it and then seeing the feedback that we started getting from ambassadors and how excited people were to do it. And I guess it was just like it was an idea in my mind. I thought it was going to be a good pillar, but once I got into it, that's when my eyes really opened to the possibility of like, dude, we're gonna, do a podcast every month for these ambassadors. Rick, you're gonna communicate with them every week. We're gonna, have the Discord for them. And that was always the thing that I said was I'm like, dude, I want these ambassadors to feel like they're part of the company. Like I want them to know what is going on with the company top to bottom, like every week. So because for me, like again, the ambassador program being a pillar, like I need you guys to carry my energy. And how do you carry my energy if I don't talk to you? If I only talk to you once every year and I give you a
Yeah.
discount code and say, "Cool, Alec, go sell some paddles for me. Go make some money for me," right? It's like no, that's not what this is about. What this is about is like having you out there being pumped because being pumped to be part of this program and like that's just I really wanted like just this feel, like this very exclusive feel where we can build it big enough to where we have these really high standards because I want the perks to be really good. Like that's the ultimate goal is to
Yeah.
really make this like the perks really good to where to get in, like I want people knocking on the door to get in and we're going, hey, sorry, like door's shut right now. We'll open it at some point.
Yeah.
That's what I really want because then it just becomes this Mavericks army, right? This core group of people. And it's like, dude, I don't want to be as big as Yola because you lose the feel of the company. I just want to do this very organic grassroots, like army feel, good products and like just tight community having fun together. And, I want everybody to grow and benefit from it.
And I think you've you've done such a fabulous job at that. And the reason I'm saying that is because, like I said, once we were first talking about ambassadorships, it was like super raw, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It was at the very beginning. And when you started doing so for anybody that is not an ambassador, right? Matt does these, as he just talked about, like internal videos to the group.
yeah,
And they, some of them are so candid and raw and real and relatable that
yeah,
it does feel like you are building a community with everybody else in there.
yeah,
And the reason that I wanted to emphasize this ambassador program realistically is because I think that that element of connection and transparency is highly slept on, not only in business but just in life in general. And I think people get that vibe, that feeling initially, and I think anybody can relate to the fact of you walk into a room or you speak to somebody and you initially make a connection, right? There are the people that you walk into in life and it's like, you know what, we vibed really well, like we
right,
gave good energy to each other, and usually you walk out of that situation getting energy back. Like
yeah,
everybody hates those conversations where you go in, you're forced to kind of have the conversation, you're forced to, you walk out of there drained.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
wanted to at least emphasize for you that that candidness, that transparency, that kind of behind the scenes of building the community and making everybody feel involved, like
right,
I do feel employed to continuously go out there and tell people about Mavericks,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I would love for anybody that's listening to it to also understand how important that element of human connection is in anything that you do in life. It's super important, and I think you do a fabulous, absolutely fabulous job at it.
yeah.
Absolutely fabulous job.
I
Um,
appreciate it, man.
you got it.
Yeah, dude, and just to kind of touch on that a little bit,
Yeah,
like I understand the importance of the emotional connection because and learning through all the branding stuff, that's why people buy what they buy is there's an emotional connection. The reason you buy Nike or whatever it is that you relate to the way that they're branded. Whether you realize it or not, the
100%,
subconscious mind buys that product because you like what they stand for.
100%.
Um, the whole monthly update videos, I got that inspiration. My old fire chief, dude, he came in, young guy, super motivated, and he was doing, it may have been every month or every 2 weeks, he would do a video just like that, raw, talking to the guys. We've never had that before. We're in a society where people don't have time to read. We don't want to read.
Mm,
We want stuff spoon fed to us. And so I realized that, like, again, how do I keep you guys connected? And I'm like, and if it's raw, it's more relatable. And that's the other part that I've realized is that when things are too overdone, you don't relate as well as
the
if I just
first
pick
two
up the
minutes of
camera.
the last one,
What's that?
the first 2 minutes of the last video.
Oh yeah, 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 exactly. And that's what I told Rick. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like this is how it's supposed to be. Is like, um, there's a time and a place to be professional,
Yeah,
and that's why these videos are all private. Is that I want the ambassadors to see me as Matt, me as the dad, me on my couch at home, like because you can relate to me more
yeah,
versus me in this office in a suit. Professional lighting, like that's all great, but we don't have the same connection. And so I finally decided, I'm like, dude, I need to do these videos. And I think it was like I said in the first video I did, I said, dude, I'm going to pick up my phone and it doesn't matter if I'm driving, whatever it is, I'm going to talk to the phone, but I'm not going to edit this. It's going to be raw. And the reason being is that if I don't have time, if there are any friction points, if I have to edit this, if I have to make this pretty, I'm not going to do it because I
yeah,
just simply don't have time to do that every month. And I plan to continue to do that, and maybe even increase that to every 2 weeks. I don't know because I think that there's just so much information that I want to continue to give the ambassadors. And again, I like the exclusive feel of like, hey, I'm talking to the ambassadors. I'm not using this video to brand us.
yeah. And it's so to brief anybody on the first 2 minutes of his last one, just because I was smiling during it. It was like 2 minutes of them trying to figure out the stream. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, mic's not working. Okay, yours not working. Okay, we're good. We
Ah,
finally got
shit, Rick, you're frozen
it. Yeah.
again.
And Rick seems like a good dude too. I mean, I haven't met him and spoke to him, but he seems like an awesome guy to bring on board as well.
Bro, gosh, dude, part of my motivation with Mavericks too is as I grow this, it's exactly like, the connection that you and I have drawn. Like,
Yeah.
you were some random guy. on the internet, right? And I have so many of these connections. Like, dude, you and I have connected over the phone, and this is Rick through my buddy Dennis and everybody else. Like, dude, the friends that I've met and made, like, just through this journey have been just insane. And dude, it just continues. I'm going to Utah this week to host a Moneyball tournament with this guy Tyler, who again he came to me through Instagram.
Yeah.
He and I connected. He's with all these pros out there, and we're hosting a Moneyball tournament. And it's just like, dude, it's this thing just keeps snowballing, and so I love it, man. It's fun.
Talking about some Moneyball tournaments only because it sparked my mind.
Yeah.
You had one in Austin recently, like a quick pop up, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
How did that go? Because that was a little different. Yeah, it looked like a super cool event.
So, dude,
Yeah.
now it's got some cool stuff coming. Doing
Okay.
things differently. So, I got hooked up with Brian Lim building pickleball when we
Yeah.
were going out there. I'll be completely honest. I drew the inspiration from when Doug from Bread and Butter was out there. They did some kind of similar event, and I saw the like outdoor thing. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And so when I was going out to see Brian, I kind of lobbed the idea out to him, and we were going to go play at Eastside Paddle Club, a really unique place. And from a content perspective, I'm like, oh, it looked really unique.
Mm,
I threw the idea out to him, and he made the connection, dude, like that. And there's actually an organization or some guys, a group of guys in Austin that do a Moneyball group. They put it together, dude. And so we did Mavericks only paddles, and it was awesome.
love it. I
So
love it.
then I walked away from there, and Brian and I were talking, and I like, right after that, I go, dude, Brian, I'm like, I got an idea. And I was like, what if, I'm like, dude, what if I created this like Fight Club feel with money balls? Like where
Huh.
I take this concept and I go to like really exclusive like courts, like not where public can play. Like this guy's got an awesome backyard, whatever it is, right? Invite only. We'll have a group of pros. It's going to be awesome because it'll be a money ball for these guys. It's going to be a fun event. Eventually, I want like music, barbecue, all that. But
Yeah.
then, how do I use it to my advantage? We're going to have a camera, video guy there, capture all the content. We're going to do a video, and then we're going to live stream it. So we have a post that'll go out tomorrow. It's for the 28th, next Saturday, and it's in Utah. The banner says undisclosed location, Utah,
Okay.
invite only, right? And it's a very down. And the other part of it is it's a super down and dirty tournament where I wanted to do something where we can host a tournament in 2 hours or less, like because then it's mindless for you. Like, dude, you can get over there. Like, yeah, I can do this. I don't have to arrange any plans.
Yeah.
But it's super easy for me to organize. We get out there, we get this content, super core group of guys. We're gonna live stream it and then capture all this content. And I want to start doing this every month, but in different locations, dude. And then so like as this thing builds, it'll be cool because then like, hey, maybe you're out in Austin and you have this cool group of guys and like you reach out to us, we're like, yeah, hey, we'll do this. And it's just kind of going to be pop-up money balls. And I think for us, where the advantage is we get some really cool content out of it. And then from the viewer's perspective, it's super cool. There's this exclusive event that's going to be live streamed. We're going to have, at this one, Clayton Boydston. We're going to have Logan Rosenbach there. There's a big YouTube guy named Austin. And then some other pro
Long
guys.
mullet.
I
Kind
don't
of
know.
blonde.
Yes, he has
I
a
think
YouTube channel.
the only reason I think I know who he is because he does a lot of stuff with Zane at the lab. I'm
Okay,
pretty
maybe
positive.
so.
Was he at your Moneyball in Austin?
No.
He wasn't. Okay. Either
No.
way,
Oh no, oh no, yeah. That's a different Austin.
okay, so I'm on the right track though.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say I think I played this guy in a qualifier once or twice.
Okay.
But yeah, listen, if you need to bring that to the Northeast, you sign me up
Dude.
and you give me a ring because I think there would be so much demand for that from multiple standpoints. Not only the exclusivity point, which who doesn't love that, right? Feeling a little bit status driven, right?
Right. Right.
Pulling on that heartstring.
Right.
But the other half of it, if I'm being honest with you, there's a whole market for a lot of these locals, like in each region of the country, that
Right.
are also pursuing pickleball at a high level. But from a financial standpoint, it's not cheap to go and fly everywhere and play. and make money and try and make money doing it. It's very, 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 very tough on the bank account.
That's a
So
good.
I might have to clip this out and keep this to ourselves before we give somebody else the idea. But
No, dude,
I think that's
it's
a great idea. Absolutely great idea.
yeah, and like, dude, the other part of it as I got into this, because again, constantly juggling ideas like, hey, do
Yeah.
we go after Ben Johns? And I'm being facetious,
Yeah.
right? Do you go after Ben Johns, try to sponsor Ben Johns? It's like, yeah, it would do a lot and cost a lot. But the other part of it is I'm like, dude, I kind of want Mavericks to be like the dark horse, like the player that doesn't have the support, the player, the amateur player that's grinding. And
Yeah.
again, where's the advantage for me as a brand? The advantage is that you relate to that guy grinding more than you do Ben Johns.
So much.
You know what I mean? And so
I
if I
resonate with that. Yeah.
right, and so and that was always my idea too with sponsoring players was like we had Drake Palm and and granted, we didn't get all the media that I wanted to do with him. Like, I wanted to do a full story and stuff,
Yeah.
and it just not the right time in the business. But that's the idea: is that we sponsor players with a story, and I want to document their story because, again, like you as a viewer, I have to provide some sort of value on social media rather than just telling you to buy my paddle. But you can relate to these stories, and that's like, dude, the Moneyball is a story. The guys that we sponsor are going to be a story. We have some new guys that we're trying to sign right now, and they all have a story. It's going to be cool. And so again, like that's what I want the Mavericks feel to be.
Yeah, and storytelling is very slept on, and I think people
Yeah,
are starting. I think anybody that is in the entrepreneurship space understands that people listen to you via a story more or not, right? That's what intrigues people. That storytelling aspect. That's what all social media is. The entire thing is storytelling,
hundred
and and
percent,
and and reels is storytelling in just a short clip. That's really
hundred
what you're
percent,
trying to do.
100%.
So shifting a little bit though, I want to get into the manufacturing of the paddles
Yeah,
because you actually brought this up at Building Pickleball, and we were originally talking about it earlier that you were going on over to China, you were looking at this process, and you were trying to get more details on really what goes into making this paddle. So you want to break down for us quickly not only what you really were educated on in China and how it went, but what goes into these paddles beyond just a core and a couple of pieces of carbon fiber on either side.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so yes, I did go to China in April, and as a matter of fact, I'm going back here next month again for
Hell yeah.
some new concepts that we're working on. Um, But yeah, the paddle idea, I mean, at its most basic level, you have carbon fiber wrapped around a polypropylene core, with some foam in there. That's at the most basic level, that's what it is. Um, and when I got into it, I thought that it was that easy. But everything you do with these paddles, because there's usually like three different plies or three level layers of carbon fiber on the face of these paddles, and whether you change the direction the carbon fiber is laid, whether you use fiberglass, whether you use Kevlar, you can use different materials in so many different combinations, and it changes the way it plays. You can use different cores, you can use different diameter cells, of course, you can put the foam into the paddle in different ways, you can weight the paddle in different ways. We're doing something new with a handle. There's so many different things that you can do with these paddles, and it's all the same materials, right? But you just kind of mix it up differently. That really change the playability of it. And again, that's something that really drives me, knowing that like there's and like the guy that I'm working with right now, I told him because we have a pretty cool concept that he came up with. And like I told him, I'm like, dude, I get it, man. We're gonna throw money at this. We're gonna go at it, and if it fails, it fails. But I told him, like, eventually it's gonna work. I promise you that. It, it
100%.
will. It will work. It might not be next year. That's what we're aiming for. But if it's not next year, dude, you just keep swinging the bat.
So do they allow you to just test a bunch of different
Dude,
concepts over there? Like, do they just say go at it?
so my factory is amazing.
Yeah.
You don't have this with most factories. I'm not just saying this, but the factory that we use, probably has the highest quality coming out of China, and there's a very big brand. That's all I'm going to say. That's also uses that factory, and I know that firsthand, obviously, because I've been there. The guy that I'm working on paddles with, he's worked with a lot of other companies, taken a lot of paddles apart. He looked at ours and agreed like they're really good quality. But
I think
one
you
of
could
the
just tell by picking it up, honestly, Matt, compared to other paddles. I have
yeah,
to give you that. Like, you could tell when
yeah.
you pick it up out of the box that it's well built.
Yeah, dude. But the people, my factory is amazing.
Yeah.
Starting with the quality, the trust, just the family feel there. Like, dude, I'm texting with them all the time. When I go over there, they're treating me like family, man. But they, when I went over there last time, they invited me back. They said, come back for as long as you want. And they go, dude, every day we will try a new prototype. I'm like, you guys like literally are gonna put your business on hold for me to like come over. I'm like, that's from like, dude, these people are legit, and so we've come up with this concept. They're working on it now to try and get us some prototypes, and then I'm gonna go over there and we're gonna iterate it even more, and then I'll be in FaceTime with the guy back here at home, and we're gonna take that, hopefully come home with like 10 prototypes, test those, and keep going from there. But I'm damn determined right now that it's like he and I talked about. I'm like, dude, we're not doing foam. We are not doing a foam core because I'm like, dude, I believe it's a fad, and I don't believe that it's the best thing. I think that people are going to get over this power and pop, and they're just not. From a durability standpoint, I don't think it's very good. So we're kind of shifting direction a little bit.
Do you think
And
it's more of people are going to get over it, or do you think more of so, not to get too much into the political nature of the industry, but do you think more so that it's going to be outlawed at this rate?
I
And
don't know if it's gonna,
you don't want to sink too much time and effort into that.
I don't know if it's going to be outlawed per se,
Okay.
because
You want to know my
PPA.
take on it
Yeah,
before you get into it?
yeah, yeah,
So the thing with foam, and this is why the paddles get hot. And I don't know how this hasn't been talked about more.
yeah.
It expands with heat.
Right.
So, like, the simple concept is that this is why the gearbox gets juiced up and there's a break-in period, and every paddle's like, I don't understand why there's a break-in period. There's a break-in period because the foam literally expands more and more and more as you use it, right?
Mm,
Simplistically. So,
right.
because of the friction that is created every time it gets hit and it heats up and it heats up and heats up, that foam expands. Now, it's only going to expand to a certain rate, whatever that expansion rate is on that material.
Right.
But in totality, the reason that I believe it would get to that point from an engineering standpoint is because if the tolerance, let's say, is, I don't know, 10 millimeters of foam, whatever it is that you could use,
Yeah.
or whatever the thickness is, if it ends up being 16 in total, that 16 is going to turn to 18 real quick, real quick.
Yeah.
So that difference in paddle it's too much for them to test, too much for them to regulate.
Yeah.
And that's at least my take on it. But I'm interesting. I want to know, because you're a little more inside than I am. Like,
Yeah.
where do you think that is going when it comes to the paddles? Because
Uh,
you're
you,
also
you,
working with USAP. You're working with UPA now.
yeah.
Um, Give me your take.
Dude, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's PPA is, I mean, I'm not going to say what I really feel, but UPA is tied to the PPA, and
yeah,
that just is what it is. Again, mindset thing. There's
yeah,
nothing you can do about it, so don't get pissed off about it. Just learn how to live within the regulations, and that's kind of what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, I because of Joola, I don't think that the standard's going to go down, but it is my opinion that it is obviously a fad. Everybody chases the fads. There's a lot of power, but I do believe because how foam acts, um, it becomes so poppy and powerful, which is great. But in my opinion, it takes away to the most important parts of the game, and to me, that's spin and control.
I agree.
And to me, with foam, the thing that because I've hit like the mod 15s, and if you barely tap the ball shoots off. Well, how do you create spin? Spin is created from head speed on a paddle, right? Well, you can't hit the ball too hard because it has an exponential force coming off it. So like with a normal polypropylene core, like I can kind of graze a ball, to create spin. But with those Mod 15s, you touch the ball and it's going to launch off. So what does that make you do? It makes you hit the ball a little softer. Well, if you're hitting the ball softer, you're not creating as much spin. So there's these different ideas with foam that I just don't think are going to last over the long haul. And I think, like I said, and I've seen it time and time again. People buy the gearbox because Chris Olsen said it was the greatest thing in the world, right? And then what did everybody do? They returned the gearbox. And it's going to be no different with the Mod 15s, that eventually people are just going to, I believe, kind of steer away from them.
Have you touched the Mod 15 surface at all?
The one I saw was really smooth.
It was smooth.
Yeah.
So the only reason I asked this is because the couple that I've seen,
Yeah.
they have not. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
They have varied a little bit, and to my understanding, like with the variants, I am interested in how they're layering that material, and even in what direction.
Mm.
And if they're layering it in different directions in different sections of the paddle.
Yeah.
And as you probably know, that depending on how that carbon fiber is laid, it's going to change the amount of grit that's on there. Because there,
Right.
and then there's like a resin on top, right? As well on top of that paddle.
Yeah. So, and that's really what creates the grid. It's they call it a peel ply. It's just essentially an epoxy resin. It's almost like imprinted on there. So you can get different grit levels essentially.
Totally.
But the initial Joolas that came out were super gritty. You saw people putting them on their shirts and they wouldn't come off.
Crazy.
But the Mod 15s are super smooth, and that's where when I felt it, I go, dude, that's not a good combination, because you need more, in my opinion, you need more grip with a foam core, because again, in my opinion, you can't hit that ball with as much head speed because you get that exponential force coming off. So in my opinion, you have to slow your head speed down, and when you slow your head speed down and you have less grit, you're not creating as much spin. Again, that's all
Yeah.
that's all anecdotal, and I don't
And I
know.
honestly think I don't have a problem, and Zane has had this take too. I don't have a problem with them maximizing spin in the game. I think
Okay.
if anything, it would be more fun. I think it'd
Yeah.
make the game super interesting because now guys could hit crazy shots into corners.
Right.
Um,
I
I
agree.
I personally think that the power aspect of it, just because you're in such an intimate, close firefight with your opponents, right? It just takes away what makes the game so much fun. And what makes the game so much fun is that chess match involved, not just plowing
Yeah.
a ball through an opponent, right?
Right.
But something that I did want to build off of this through this manufacturing process
Yeah.
is you clearly have definitely hit some speed bumps through that, right?
Mhm.
What is one major failure that you overcame throughout this process? Do you have one that you're thinking of?
Dude, I mean, there's been a ton of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as the manufacturing process, yeah, there was a bit of a speed bump.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know if I should talk about it publicly. I gotta watch how I talk about this.
And if listen, honestly, if you need me to clip it out afterwards, you let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be kind of vague. Just so I've ordered paddles, from factory quite a bit, and when we got the Clash 15s, we one of the batches. I'll just say one of the batches that I got, um, the ink on the surface of them was too high, and it shouldn't have been. Well, that ink on the surface made us fail at USAPA, made us fail to stare it.
That's interesting.
The surface roughness test, and I had already ordered all these paddles. They were en route, and we had already started pre-selling them because I've been through this process before. I knew that we were going to pass USAP, and I never thought about the ink being too high to throw off the stare. And I'm like, this is not intended to create spin.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, it was kind of an oh shit moment, and did some stuff. It was all fine in the end, but that was one of those moments too where through entrepreneurship you take the deep breath and go, all right, it's going to be a roller coaster ride for the next 4 weeks. Hold your breath, right? But we're going to get through this, and we could talk off the record about all the other stuff that
Yeah.
happened. I don't want to talk about that publicly, but
Yeah.
anyways, it's all good. Everything was fine going forward, but it was an oh shit moment when we have 2,000 paddles coming that possibly were out of spec, and that's when, as a new manufacturer, again, I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been through so many different things in my life where I'm like, dude, I tell everybody, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this, but I promise you, we're gonna figure it out. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lose sleep over this. Like, we're gonna figure it out. So, and yeah, that just was what it was. But that was one of the speed bumps.
And you did, and listen, ultimately where you are today, you did figure it out. And
Yeah,
the reason that I asked you that question is because when we talk about candidness and relatability and actually being raw, for anybody to think that every manufacturer is not experiencing some major roadblock like that, especially getting into such a new space, it is
right.
it's bullshit, right?
Yeah,
Every single person is going through something, and not getting any sort of involved in the Yola legal case, but like that's exactly what that turned into. It just Yola's a big company, so it's a massive scale, right? That's it. But every manufacturer is going through speed bumps, figuring stuff out. And you have to that's where ultimately you have to communicate and navigate those things in life on a daily basis, in business and outside of it. So an intelligent person also said, and this leads me perfectly into this. So I'm gonna shout out Brian Lim because I got this from Building Pickleball as well,
okay.
and he just did such a great interview with
I
you, and he said some really good things.
appreciate
But
it.
leading into what you just talked about, which is like this mindset of being super resilient and just knowing, no matter what is thrown at you, you're gonna get through it.
Right.
You said this about parenting your daughter, and I don't know if you remember it, but I'm gonna tell you.
I didn't watch the interview. I don't like watching like myself talk. So, but anyways, yeah.
I think you said that on the ambassador update. I think you did.
Okay. Yeah.
So you said part of my parenting approach now is trial and error. That's the only way to learn and grow, to encourage somebody to essentially fail.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I didn't have that mindset. So what led you today to have that mindset? And my secondary question is, why didn't you have it 3 years ago?
Dude, you're getting deep, and I love it. So all of our decisions and the way that our brains are wired all go back to the way that we're parented and the way that we're raised.
Yeah.
And your parents are there to protect you. Your parents normally do not encourage failure because they're there to try to make sure the outcome's always perfect. I've always had these ideas. I was never encouraged to, hey, try it, see what happens, right? So when and that's not just me, that's the way that everybody is raised. As I got into, again, through my divorce, through everything else, reading Alex Hormozy, listening to all these other great entrepreneurs, you start seeing the same patterns over and over and over. Everybody is who they are because of failure. That's the only way that people get to where they are, is because you have to try stuff and fail over and over and over. And again, getting into Mavericks, the reason that I didn't tell anybody about this was I didn't want to be discouraged. I just started getting this mindset of like, hey, I'm trying to make myself this best person I possibly can. And the only way to get there is that I have to learn. I
Mm.
have to try stuff and I have to learn. That was why Mavericks started, was that I'm like, dude, if this fails, I'm going to learn something from it and I'm going to take it. Eventually, I will create a success. Um, so with the whole parenting thing, yes, we normally don't want to see our kids fall. We don't want to see our kids, fail at anything. But to me, like, one of the greatest things that you can instill in your kid or teach them is confidence. And the only way, in my opinion, to have confidence is through constant trial and error and learning. Like, that's the only way that you become confident, is the reassurance that you can do something, but you can't just wake up in the morning and go, I can do it. No. And it's like Alex Hormozy says, you have to have a stack of like undeniable, proof that you can do it.
I
Right.
love
And then
that
that's
quote.
exactly where it
Yeah.
is. And so, I mean, I think that a lot of it, dude, honestly, is listening to Alex Hormozy, and it just finally clicked of like, dude, encourage failure as much as you can.
Is there a
So,
time when you wanted to quit?
oh, dude. Yes, yeah, week by week, man. No, I mean, there's highs and lows every single month. Sales are slow, something doesn't go right, right? Financial stress, whatever it is, long weeks. Yes, it's dude over and over. But I've also done enough stuff in my life, and this is kind of going back to some of my other experiences.
Yeah.
I bought a duplex and rehab 2 units with my dad, and I can tell you right now my dad could quote me their exact words where I had many days where I'm like, dude, I just want to burn this damn house down. Like I'm so sick and tired of this damn place. Because you go put in a bathtub and shit, all of a sudden now you're chasing plumbing. I've learned through all of that rehabbing stuff that, dude, there are so many days that I wanted to burn that damn house down because I was just so goddamn sick and tired of it. And I look back at it now and I go, dude, the best decision I ever made was to buy that property, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing through life where I've been through enough things where you feel like you're at the brink of failure, but now I realize that the brink of failure means that you're almost to a new chapter. And I have this mindset now that like there are those days that you wake up and you don't want to do shit, and I have many of those days. But I always force myself. I'm like, dude, just give it 20%. Just give it 20%. That's all you got to do today. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to be perfect, but through the lows, you got to just keep barely chugging along because again, the thing that I've realized is that through entrepreneurship or life, you have these really, really great highs, and the highs are amazing, but you got a lot of damn lows. And really, the person that succeeds is learning how to minimize those lows and try and balance things out. And so, to answer your question in a long way, that's yeah.
So what? So on the topic of quitting, you said there's plenty of times that you wanted to quit, and I
Yeah.
think that we all experience that on your low days.
Yeah.
Is there a consistent reminder that you have? Is it in your office, in an office, anywhere that reminds you saying today's not the day that I'm quitting?
Not necessarily, but the fact that my daughter's name is tied to the brand, I can tell
Mm,
you right now that it will never fail. Period.
I love that.
Period. And
Do you
dude,
think there's a
what's that?
do you think there's a point when not necessarily quitting, but pivoting is a reasonable thing to do?
Yes, there is, and a lot of people with a conservative mindset would tell you like because there was a point in time here where, and again, people close to me are like, "Hey, dude, just like keep it on Amazon, just like let it sell, just do its thing, right?" I also have the mindset and the belief, like I read Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, I read his book. Dude, it took Phil Knight 8 years of just goddamn failures, getting beaten into the ground, not having money, trying to get loans, going through lawsuits, getting sued, running back and forth to Japan with a
Mm,
child. You look at that story, right? Where's Nike today? They're probably the most successful sports company, right? They never should have been. And it's my belief that anything you do can turn into a Nike, but it never will because the majority of people give up on it. And so it is my mindset, and I truly do believe that with Mavericks, as long as I can keep the energy, like I truly believe that this can turn into a Nike. Like that is my true belief.
yeah.
Right now, I'm not promising that I'm going to keep the energy, and if I don't keep the energy, then it doesn't get there. But I know in my heart that if I keep up the energy and I keep motivated, like you can't fail, like you keep growing. And so, anyways,
You
yeah.
have to have that belief, right? There's no other option than to um I forgot the term that he used, but basically you're so overly optimistic that the only way is through, right? And is forward.
The
And
only way out is through.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if you don't have that belief, you're basically telling yourself you're not going to get there, right?
Right.
True.
Yep.
And what people forget about the Phil Knight story often is they forget that the other major brands in the shoe industry were already established. So like often people think of the Nike story and of like nobody was really out there and they built this big brand. New Balance was huge then, huge, right? Reebok was also a huge brand. And guess what unfortunately happened to those companies as well? Not they're still not big companies today, but Reebok was one of them who had to make a major pivot through their experience, right? They, like Yahoo with the internet, slept on the guy coming up. Didn't realize the tenacity, the resilience that this dude had coming through to build his brand.
Right.
And unfortunately, when you sleep that much on somebody, you think they grow overnight, but they don't. And before you
Yeah.
know it, they're not only your competitor, but they're above you.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody can do that with any brand. And all it does take is belief. So that's why I'm emphasizing that belief that you need to have in yourself and in what you're doing, because
Right.
you are telling yourself you're not going to get there.
Right.
You don't have that belief. It just won't work.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say this because you said, is there ever a point that will pivot? I
Yeah.
also operate now with the mindset of, yes, I have an end goal in mind, but I don't focus too much on that end goal. And the reason being is that when you go down any of these journeys, nobody's ever been down this. So how do you make a plan of how to get to the end when you don't know what's going to happen in the middle? And so now I do operate of the mindset of like, dude, I go balls to the wall, and if something doesn't work, the door shuts, another door opens. Moneyball is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Moneyball is how Mavericks, that's what Mavericks becomes known for. I don't know. And so maybe that does become the pivot. But I operate of the mindset of like, dude, we just keep going forward, and doors close and then they open. We'll enter a door, right? Get into there. If it works, great. We continue. If it doesn't, we go through another door. And that's just the way that I operate. And that's literally why we are where we are now. And to me, it's a more organic approach versus just having going, hey, this is our plan and this is the way that we're going. Um, I believe that the structure kind of takes away from the emotional and organic build of the brand. So
Something that I emphasize that I want to reiterate there that's so important is it not being a Bible. It's more of a plan. And the emphasis on plan is saying that it's directional. It's not in stone. It's not written. It's not that it can't be changed. You're writing it in pencil ultimately, not pen. And I think there's a huge emphasis on that because you have to be able to adapt. Real life example in pickleball, it's like all the top pros can play fast and play slow. They adapt, they mold like clay, depending on the situation that they are in. Another analogy that you made was, and it's funny that you say this because I use this all the time, and maybe we got it from somewhere, but
yeah,
have you ever seen the show Dark Matter on Apple TV? No?
say that I
Well,
have.
the only reason I'm saying it is because there's this long hallway
Okay.
with all of these doors, and every door is to a new universe, which is a new opportunity. So the reason that I use this visual is because I use the same thing in life, is that you have this hallway of life with all of these doors. Some are closed, some are open. Some you close yourself, some you open yourself, some you leave open for an extended period of time because you don't know where it's going to take you. And I think if more people operated in that manner of saying, you know what, this door may lead me to something, let me leave it open for a little while and see what happens. And then sometimes you do that and you're like, this isn't going to work. And you close the door behind you. But ultimately, if you never go through life opening any doors, you never know what's on the other side. You do not know what's on the other side. So
Nope.
you have to make those connections. You have to meet people. You have to reach out randomly.
Yeah.
Reached out to you on Instagram and said, "Hey, here's what
Yeah.
I'm doing. Here's my background. I love your paddle. What can we do
Yeah.
together?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to do that because you don't know where it's going to lead and what doors it opens up. And you know
Right.
what? 6 months ago, I had no idea we were going to probably sit down and do this podcast together. I didn't know our podcast was going to get to the level that it's at today
Right.
and where it's going to be in the next 6 months, right? So like
Amen.
that all being unwritten was only because like you decided with Mavericks and like I decided with the Fail First project is like I opened a door, I went through it, I saw
Yeah.
what happened, and then I kept opening doors to see what was on the other side.
Right.
So when you use that analogy, I was like, I literally think of this every single day. I cannot believe he's saying that at all.
Yeah.
So I went on a little bit of rant there, but
I
I
need
kind
to
of
just look. Hold on. I need to look. Oh,
you're good.
so I'm. Oh shoot.
You good?
Yeah. I'm just like, dude. My phone has 4% left, so I should be good for.
You're good. I have a couple closing questions for you,
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
and we're gonna start with the toughest one first.
Yeah.
What is your greatest fear today?
Mm.
You
You
give
ready
it a
for this
second.
one? No, it's good. It's
Yeah,
kind of
you got it.
morbid. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
morbid, but
There's nothing wrong with that.
it's what drives me. And
Okay.
this is probably gonna sound familiar because you're gonna know exactly where I got it,
Mm,
but it resonates. My biggest fear is being on my deathbed and having regrets.
mm,
Like I don't, and again, going back to why is Mavericks where it is today, I don't ever want to look back. Like again, this gets very morbid, but the day that I go, like I want to look back and go, dude, like I'm happy with everything that I did. I tried everything that I could, and like I'm ultimately okay in life wherever I get, as long as I've tried stuff. Even if it's a failure, that's
yeah.
fine. But I can't live with myself if I don't try.
100%.
So
100%.
yeah,
And and I know you labeled it as morbid, but I think it has to be a lot of people's reality in order to give them, like, you know, when it hits you in the chest and you're like, oh my God, that really hit me emotionally, right?
yeah,
I think people only get that by understanding there's an end. I think for too long, people forget that, like, you run out of time.
yep,
And for me, the reason that we resonate, I just put it different ways. Like my biggest fear is running out of time. And
yeah,
I don't know when my time is up. Like my time could be up tomorrow. I
yep,
don't know that. But I have to accept, and this is what I have been like much better at accepting, is that if my day is tomorrow, I don't have any regrets because I've been working towards this entire time what I've been wanting to build and
yep,
what I believe my purpose is today and what I want to be doing with my time. We talk
right,
about time allocation, right?
right,
Time is your biggest commodity. If you are not allocating your time to the things that you want to allocate your time towards, like
yeah,
you got to make a change. You really got to make a change. So I appreciate you giving that response
yeah,
because although you can call it morbid, it's spot on. It's
yeah,
true. It's
yeah,
raw, real, and relatable, like we talked about, right?
right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that was the toughest one first.
No, dude,
Yeah,
I like that question because I think about it a lot.
yeah,
And like, yeah, dude. And I guess the other way to frame it, just to say this again, is like
yeah,
think about it this way: like if I did die tomorrow, right? Would I be happy at least with what I've done to this point, right?
exactly,
And that's the exact thing. Is like if you die tomorrow, I don't want to have regret of damn, I should have gone and hang out with these people, or I should have tried that. So, anyways, sorry.
exactly. It also connects to the fact of why you have to open those doors that we talked about,
Absolutely,
right?
man. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so I don't know if this one's gonna be tougher for you, but I'm gonna give it to you in case I can't get to the last one.
Yeah,
So one day, when your daughter watches this all back,
yeah.
what is one thing you want her to know for why you are doing all of this?
Oh shit. Oh man.
And
That's gonna be a tough one.
that's okay. Listen,
The thing that really motivates me is that um, as a father, like I want to be able to give my daughter the most amount of tools possible in life. And to me, one of the most important, like most valuable tools that I could give is like confidence and like her understanding that she could take this life and make what she wants. So
I think that I am not in the point of fathership,
yeah,
however, or fatherhood.
right,
However, I resonate with that so hard. Like
yeah,
with the Fail First project, if there's anything that I can employ to my future kids, it's like go out there, fail as much as you possibly can, be the first one to fail, do it as frequently as you possibly could, and keep doing that over and over again. Like make life
yeah.
your bitch, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And dude, I mean the other thing, and I try and still listen with her today is like,
Yeah.
just dude, don't take life serious.
Right?
You know?
You know
Right.
what? I was a prime candidate of that, if I'm being honest with you. Where like I think when you get on this personal development journey, and I don't know what you got left on your phone,
Sorry, I'm at 3%, so we're good.
you're good.
Yeah.
I only got the one more question left for
No,
you.
no, no, you're good.
But I think when everybody starts on this personal development journey, it's like there's so much information that goes through your brain. You think you need to tackle everything at once, and you become very, very serious very quickly because you think you need to do everything at a rapid rate,
Right.
right? And I think the other half of that is like if you're moving forward directionally, and we talked about regret, if you're moving forward directionally and allocating your time daily to the things that you need to, there is time to find joy in life. What sucks the joy out of life is when you're allocating times to things you don't want to, right? When you don't want to go to your job every single day, that sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
Sucks it right out of you. You got no energy coming home at the end of the day to allocate your time to anything you want to do.
Right.
Right. So I think that is a super important point.
Yeah.
Building on that kind of
And
beyond.
hold on. So
Yeah.
real quick
Yeah.
too, and I had to chop this up because, dude, if I answered that question in its totality, I would probably get choked up.
Yeah.
But like the other thing, and I just want to say this because I feel like I need to,
Yeah.
like with Mavericks and everything that I've learned is that for me, in order to teach anybody else or my daughters, like, dude, I have to have gone through it, right? How do I teach her to, life is fucking crazy. No, I don't, and the only way for me and there's all sorts of problems in life. And the only way that I've learned how to deal with problems is to go through problems, to actually
Yeah.
understand, to be able to reframe like problems. And the more shit that I've gone through, it's made me stronger and stronger, realizing that, um, you get an offender bender today, like whatever, right? It is what it is. But if somebody's never had problems in their life, that fender bender is going to ruin their day. So through this, one of the things that I've tried to instill in my daughter is that every day, like you spill water on the ground, whatever it is, like I always tell her, hey, mistakes happen. It's not a big deal, right? It's not going to ruin our day. And I always tell her that. And so she always, like, she's always repeating that. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Her
man,
her repeating
that's big.
that's big. Her repeating that is huge. And
Yep.
like to reiterate that, like some of the athletes that we work with, the biggest thing is that when they resonate with failure as something to make fun of, and I know that sounds kind of wishy-washy, but it's true. Like you go through and you mess up and you go, I failed again, and you giggle a little bit. You can making that relationship with failure and then going back out there and doing it again is the biggest win because you're not running away from it. So her doing that at such a young age is huge for her future moving forward.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and it's we can go into this for days, but that is
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I struggled with. I was there, dude.
Yeah.
The small shit in life would ruin my day. And now I realize it's all a frame of mind. And it's like, dude, if you can learn how to reframe problems in life, like that's where true happiness comes, is like when you realize that you go through your day and you get an offender bender, it's like, fuck it. Like again, I've been through shit before. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna ruin our day. And I always tell every day, dude, there's stuff and I go, hey, dude, don't let it ruin your day. Like it just is what it is. Right.
He
So
probably comes back and is like, Dad, didn't ruin my day today.
yep, dude, she says it all the time. Like her little friend that was mean to her, I go, dude, Haven, you're not gonna let her ruin your day today. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna be happy. I always tell her every morning, hey, we're gonna crush today, right? So
I love that. I
yeah.
absolutely love that. You ever I was thinking about this when you're saying this about problems, and because I love the frame that you gave. And have you ever heard the thing, and I don't know if it was Hermosa or somebody else, but it's like the one choice that you definitely get to make in life is the problems you choose to solve. Have you heard that before?
In different ways, yeah.
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 And the reason I wanted to reiterate that is because when you were speaking about problems, it is so true. Like you go through day-to-day life and like you could choose to try and navigate the problem of a fender bender. You
Mhm.
could. You could allocate your time to that.
Mhm.
But ultimately, like when I review it, it's like there's other problems that I'd much rather be solving than this fender bender that I'm going to argue with this guy over, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's that, and then, dude, Alex Hormozy again. This is gold, and this is reframing the mind of like,
mm,
hey, you get an offender bender today. Somebody in Uganda would wish that they were in your position getting an offender bender because that means they're in a first world country driving a damn nice car, living in a place, right? It's all how we frame our mind.
so
And
true.
that's how I've had to rethink about a lot of stuff, is like when there's stuff that's going to ruin my day, it's always like, dude, shit could be so much worse. And again, I don't want to go morbid where I go with this,
Yeah.
but like tragic stuff could happen, right? Those are real problems, right? Fender bender, right? Whatever problems with sales or whatever, like, dude, those aren't problems.
I think that skill of reframing, like using new frames or lenses to give yourself a different viewpoint or perspective, is huge. And that can go into the whole. I'll have to have you on again. We'll definitely have you on
No,
again.
dude, bro, this has been awesome, man. Like
Yeah.
I could keep going, man. This is dude, I knew that you and I spoke the same language, man, but this has been amazing. Like I love talking this stuff.
As you can tell, I do too. And like I think it's just such a foundation of both of us and what we're doing that I think honestly we could talk for hours and hours.
I mean, dude, part of the reason, and sorry to interrupt, part of
Yeah,
the
you're
reason
good.
that I'm so passionate about it, and I talk to a buddy at work about this all the time, is 2 years ago, dude, I was there. I looked at everything very pessimistically. Like I was there. And where I'm at now, like this completely different mindset, like that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I tell my buddy at work, like, and I'm like, dude, the only reason I'm telling you this is like, that was me. The way you're talking about shit as negative as you are, I'm like, dude, that was me. So I'm like, and I'm very passionate because I realize, like, dude, like you're negative every day. That's going to wear on your wife. That's going to wear on your kids. Like, who are you as a man? Right. So anyways, it's a super, super passionate topic for me.
This leads me perfectly into what I want to close with.
Yeah.
And what we're going to close with is if you had to give, and this is perfect because you're just reflecting on this. If you had to give one piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, maybe it was 25, but somewhere in that range, what would it be and why?
I don't know how to like really boil this down, but it would essentially be that we are always in life, we're looking for whatever's going to, lead us to the golden the straightest path, right? And whether you start a lawn mowing company, whether you start like whatever it is, pickleball company, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're not passionate about it, like you're not going to be successful. And so what I'm getting at is my belief is like, you find something that you're passionate about, stick with it, and just continue to stick with it. Don't jump around. Like just have beliefs. There's going to be ups and downs. Like, and just, go through that journey and embrace failure. Because looking back, I was always trying to find like, hey, what's going to be the easiest path? What's going to get me? And it's like none of them are. Like it's a fucking lot of work no matter what you do. So I know I didn't really give a clear answer, but that's yeah.
No, I think to summarize it, it's like you have to be willing to fail and you have to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Because the work is never going to be easy. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it only gets harder, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right? Because as
Yeah.
you move up the ecosystem, as you get bigger and bigger, there's new problems to solve. Ones that you haven't thought of, ones that you don't have the skill set to navigate, and now all of a sudden you do, right? You have to try and figure it out. So, I think that's a tremendous summary. And I think I lost Matt. He did freeze, but I was about to thank him for being on the podcast today. So, Matt, when you watch this back, if you do, thank you for being on the podcast today, buddy. We'll talk soon, and I'll definitely have you on again. I'll see you.